Hi everyone, I think we are live directly from Berlin Music Studio. I welcome everybody here tonight for our chat about three or four amazing musicians. We couldn't avoid to put one more in our conversation tonight. Tonight I'm talking with Brian Goggin. Um, an excellent musician, a dear friend of mine, living in London. He's from Ireland, County Cork, originally. So you're gonna know a bit about himself a little bit, and we're gonna talk about a lot of interesting musicians and their stories. And I hope you enjoy. So I think Brian is almost here, and we can wait for people to arrive. Brian is on the backstage at the moment, so you can leave your comments here as well if you can hear me okay. And yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Bessie Smith, Jelly Roll. Opa, my microphone just fell. Jelly Roll and Fats Waller, and there was Duck Ellington as well. So we're going to be talking about four people this evening. So I'm going to welcome, are we going to welcome Brian? Coming in, Brian. Yay.
Hello, Bianca. Hello,
Hello,
everybody.
Brian. Welcome. Welcome overseas guests tonight.
Thanks,
Thank you
Bianca.
for thank you for accepting my
Thanks for
invitation
inviting me.
tonight. Cool. Yeah, myself and Brian, we have been playing open mics, virtual open mics around the internet and doing a lot of songs and, interacting with other musicians. And Brian has been playing a lot of tunes, amazing tunes, jazz tunes. And yeah, so we start tonight with people around. Hello again, Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Welcome. Lisa is from Michigan. Is that right? USA. Um, so, can you help us and tell how is the sound? If you can hear us okay. We're going to be talking about amazing musicians tonight. Very interesting musicians. But first, I'm going to talk about another amazing musician. There is Brian himself. That will be talking a bit of himself tonight and introducing himself. Okay, thank you, Lisa. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight and stay with us. That we're gonna be talking about a lot of amazing people and their history and the impact they had during the time they were performing, living. So yes, Brian, how did you start? How everything started in your life with music in Ireland?
Well, I guess would have when I was a kid, you had. I was lucky at the time I grew up really because you had a couple of music festivals used to run in Cork. You had the country Carling Country Music Festival and the Guinness Jazz Festival, and obviously you're exposed to a lot of other stuff as well with Top of the Pops on TV and so on. My mother would have been into rock and roll. My dad was into opera, brass band music, and jazz. And my grandfather on my mother's side was a fine musician, played the fiddle and the accordion, trad music. And
Wow.
my father's mother played a bit of piano. So there was always music there from the start, even though my parents weren't musicians themselves. They were always big music appreciators. So in the early 80s anyway, like, usually if my mother was doing the Sunday dinner, my father would take us out of the way, out from under our feet, and if one of those music festivals was on, he'd bring us into that and just got into things that way. And he'd have a cheeky Sunday lunchtime pint while he was looking after us as well with that. So that was good. So you got to see
Ah,
and hear stuff then, and particularly I took an interest in the jazz through the Guinness Jazz Festival. The Gramophone
mm,
Library opened in Cork around the same time as well, and that was 1983. It was a bit later I got into it, say,
wow.
when I was 8 or 9, and my father used to get records out of that as well. So, and they had a big jazz collection there. Particularly, there was these RCA Jazz Tribune double LPs, and they got a huge stock of them in. So, my father got some of them out, and I just got into it from there. and would have first heard. I remember the Benny Goodman story was on TV, and my father got a record of him out and some Jelly Roll Morton, and I just got into that from a young age then, and took it from there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good. So you were about 9 years old, was it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
about that. And then after I met you, now going forward in time, I met
yeah,
you when you were playing in the Athlone Orchestra, Jazz Orchestra, was
yeah.
it? Like, was it?
That's right. Yeah, the big
Yes,
band. It
yes,
was
yes,
yeah, four trumpet there. I mean, amateur musician, and I learned a lot from those guys, and it was great. I mean, there just to call out there, like Athlone is it's a fascinating town because there's such a huge number of talented musicians there, yourself included,
yes.
Bianca, and there's
Oh, thank
just a
you.
massive amount of talent there, and not just music. The arts in general.
Yes,
They've the annual drama festival there. There's a huge amount of artists there as well, and the sports scenes, fishing, boating, all that. Like so, for a town of 20, 20 something thousand, like
mm-hmm.
tis far bigger than it would look from the outside, and definitely a hidden gem in the Midlands in Ireland.
Yeah,
So I don't think you'll disagree with me there, Bianca. But anyway, the
yeah,
big band was amazing because they have a barracks there as well, the costume barracks in Athlone. It's on the
yes,
west side of the river there, and a lot of the guys there were musicians, and they got a big band together. And I was lucky to get involved in that, and I learned so much from the guys. I mean, guys like Joe Byrne, Frankie MacDonald, Jerry Lacey. They were the other trumpets there, and the great camaraderie and great musicianship, and you learn so much in a band because you're not you've got to know your own stuff, and you have to know what the other guys are doing, and you have to have your eye on both balls then, like
yes,
when you're playing there as well. Be aware of what you're doing and be aware of what the guys around you are doing. So it is great training,
yes,
and was a
yes,
great
yes.
buzz.
Oh, very good. And then now you're living in London,
Yeah,
and before the pandemic, you're playing a lot. I saw
yeah,
a lot of pictures, and I know this affected all of us. But
yeah,
still, you kept doing this
yeah,
online performances in the groups where we are, and
yeah,
you invite me to the groups,
right,
and I'm very
yeah.
grateful for you to invite me
Oh,
because I really enjoy doing it.
mm,
And yeah, so if you want to know about the group, or if
yeah,
you that are watching now, Lisa, as well, you're welcome to go
yeah.
to the open mic,
Mm. Join and
join
brew.
and
Yeah,
brew, yeah. And you can just watch the performances there, and it's free.
yeah,
And yeah, so we're gonna start talking about our first musician of the night. You can choose,
mm. Should we?
Brian.
I suppose if we could
Let's
start with
start.
Jelly Roll Morton, please, Bianca.
Okay.
So,
Yes, and I'm gonna put a picture
yeah,
here. I got some
yeah,
pictures. Brian sent me lovely pictures of Jelly Roll.
there you
There,
go. Yeah.
between
So
us.
yeah,
Hi.
he, he looks
Hello, Lisa. Hello.
look, yeah. So he looks like a guy from the times of the Irish Civil War or something. He's got from the style
Wow.
from back then, and
Amazing.
yeah. So that's an early
Yes.
picture of him now. His real name was actually Ferdinand Joseph Lamotte, and he was a Creole, so he was a mixture of French and black
Yes.
ancestry from New Orleans, and or well, it's kind of debatable when and where he was born, but the general thinking he was born around 1889 or 1890 in or around New Orleans.
Yeah.
I think his stepfather's name was Mouton, which he anglicised to Martin then. So that was it. And Jelly Roll was slang for various bits I won't go into on this call, but
Mm-hmm.
he
Okay.
so
Yes.
but he was one of the early jazz greats, and he
He was a
piano player,
pianist, was, yeah, piano
pianist, yeah.
player. Yeah.
And when he was young, he played a bit of guitar and trombone as well, and drums as well. But like piano, he never recorded on them. Guitar briefly, but like piano was his thing, and he was a great early jazz pianist. Made the leap from ragtime piano to jazz piano, and he worked in various things as well. He worked as an actor in the theater as well, and he would have traveled all over North America, right up to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if he got as far as Alaska. Would have been down through Mexico and
Jeez.
around all over the states. I mean, he went from New Orleans. He ended up out in California, 1917 to 1923. Spent 6 years there. Did very well. Moved back east again to Chicago and made his first records there. And he actually recorded with a white band called the New Orleans Rhythm Kings. And they told the boarding house they were staying in and the record company, I think they told him he was Cuban to avoid any of the, because it was very racist back then and there was
Mm-hmm.
segregation between the
Mm-hmm.
black people and the white people. But Jelly Roll
Yeah.
recorded with made the early records anyhow with the white band.
Wow.
And then they were made his own compositions from back around that time. Recorded King Porter's Stomp as a piano solo, and that was one of the first actual jazz compositions as opposed to Tin Pan Alley or pop songs. That was one of the first specifically jazz
Mm-hmm.
compositions, and it went on to be a hit for Benny Goodman during the swing era. But
Yeah.
Jelly Roll, he never did a band version himself, but he recorded his piano solo a few times. He got his own band together. Then he had recorded with bands, all right, but his own where he came into himself really was there was a series of records he made from 1926 to 1930 under the name the Red Hot Peppers, and it was a great piece of small band arranging where a guy called Don Redman
Mm-hmm.
developed and Fletcher Henderson developed the kind of big band arranging in the 20s. Jelly Roll Morton excelled at the small band stuff where he, set up the arrangements so as the ensembles were documented out well, and then the guys were given the space to play solos on that as well. And it's fascinating stuff and a great series of records, from
Yeah.
1926 to 1930 or so. And then unfortunately, the Victor Recording Company didn't. He had a big band. He made a couple of big band records during that time as well. But the Victor
Mm-hmm.
Recording Company, with the Depression, cancelled his
Yeah.
contract, and he slipped into
Oh.
hard times for the rest of the Depression. And he had a bit of a comeback. He went to Washington for a few years and he made a last ditch attempt. He wrote a bunch of new compositions in the late 30s. Did another bit
Mm-hmm.
of recording
Mm-hmm.
for Victor, which was nice. One of the pictures I have there is of that band. And unfortunately, he got stabbed in the chest and the head when he was in his late 40s. And that,
Jeez, poor him.
yeah, yeah, he ended up with a heart condition and asthma. It was something to do with
Jeez.
this guy was hit a woman or something, and he hit him back. And when he went back on the piano stand, the guy came up and stabbed him in the head and the chest, and
Jeez.
his health just kind of got worse and worse after that. And he wrote he wrote a bunch of new compositions, and he wanted to relaunch himself on the West Coast again because he'd done well there earlier.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
absolute madness. He took cars, a Lincoln and a Cadillac. He changed one onto the other,
Jeez.
and he
So
drove.
he was leaving from jazz and for playing from
Yeah,
playing, but then after the depression, then everything
yeah, he
changed.
went badly.
Then
And as I
yeah,
say,
yeah.
he was trying to relaunch himself, so with the health condition and everything, he chained his two cars together and drove from New York to California, back to Los Angeles, 3,000 and something miles in November 1940. And in the depths of winter, he lost one of the cars in the snow along the way. It was storms the
Oh
whole
my
way.
God,
He got there
Jesus.
eventually,
And was
but he
very
died.
severe at
Yeah,
that
very
time.
severe.
They didn't have the proper
No,
cars for that. Like
no.
not at
So
all.
he had abandoned one along the way, and he landed in Los Angeles anyway. And he did a couple of rehearsals with them, and died a few months, 8 months later. Just died in Los Angeles. He didn't never never got back on track again. So it was very sad, very tragic. But the funny
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
was the trunk he had, the arrangements and compositions he sent them on, they were lost for years and they were rediscovered in the 90s and they were performed in
Amazing.
public for the first time in 1998, which was years after he died.
Jeez. And
Yeah.
how is possible? Like, who discovered him? Like, was it someone that was researching about music or something, and then suddenly, oh, I discovered this guy,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
it.
he'd made a lot of records
Yeah,
when
yeah.
in the good times in the 20s before the depression.
Mm.
He made a good many lot of records and he'd been working in Chicago and New York. So he was well known. Now he used to get into arguments with people and so on. All right, but like most of the musicians that
He was
played with him,
popular.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So most of the musicians played with him. They respected him and they used to get a kick out of winding him up
Hmm.
and so on. But he was no, he got the best out of the musicians. And like I said, I'd urge people to check out the records from the late 20s. It's fascinating stuff. Great jazz. Some of the best jazz you'll ever hear.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, and after all this discovery about him, then people start recording some of his songs, or
Yeah, yeah.
you think
So
like yeah,
and the best known one would be King Porter Stomp.
yeah.
As I said, Benny Goodman had a hit with that. Fletcher Henderson recorded. Some of the other songs, like I suppose, what else? There was one called Grandpa Spells. That was one that would been well known, and there was a couple that he didn't write, like Someday Sweetheart. That's regularly played. I remember visiting
Mm-hmm.
Barcelona, coming around the corner, finding a jazz band playing that, like, and they were,
And the
so there was,
street.
yeah, so that was, there's a lot of them are like that would still be played today. Might necessarily be known by everybody, but they're still played today anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. This, yeah,
Mm,
this is something that I'm looking forward to
mm,
research deeply more now that I'm
yeah,
talking to you.
great.
And yeah, I hope the audience is enjoying. So I can see the comments here. If you knew about Jelly Roll, you can type it in, or if you know another artist as
Well,
well.
I just sorry, Bianca. I just say
Yeah.
there. There's a great website. A late friend of mine set it up. I'm trying to get some updates done now, but drjazz.co.uk. That has
Oh, wait,
everything
I'm
you
going
need
to
to know
write
about
here.
Jelly Roll Morton. Yeah,
www. Dr.
Doctor DOCTOR
Okay,
jazz.co.uk.
jazz.co.uk.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
post in. So, what is this website about?
it's about a few artists, mainly Jelly Roll Morton. Also, the guy Mike Meddings, he was a friend of mine. He had the website. He's sadly passed away. He died in 2013, but he did it. He did that on Jelly Roll Morton and a few other piano players. That was his thing mainly, and actually cutting piano rolls is what Mike used to do a lot. And I actually went to America with Mike, and we went to NARA, the National Archives in Georgia, and we got to see a lot of the world,
Really?
yeah, the World War I draft cards of a lot of the musicians of the time. So it was fascinating. These things were filled
Where
out
was that
90
in
years
Georgia?
ago.
Was Savannah? No.
No, it was
No.
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It
it
is.
was fascinating trip, and you got to see and hold some of those cards
Wow. I
filled out.
want to go there. I want to go to New
Good.
Orleans. Oh my God.
Oh, do it, Bianca.
Oh God.
Thoroughly recommend
It's
it.
in the bucket list.
Do it. Yeah.
It's in the bucket. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's
Mm,
amazing. So yeah, so you can visit drjazz.co.uk so you
yeah.
can know more
More
about
about Jelly Roll. Yeah.
Jelly Roll. Cool. So I think maybe would you like to play a song, or we go to our
Um.
next what do
Sure.
you think?
Let's,
Warm up a bit.
warm up, but yeah, sure. We
Yeah,
do
we
one
warm
more there.
up a bit. We do one more, and then
Yeah.
we do Duke
Duke
Ellington.
Ellington. Yeah.
Yes. So we go to the next. Now
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah. There you
disappear
go.
now a little bit, but
Yeah.
I
Cool.
suppose
People from
it's
behind
not.
there.
Ah,
So,
no.
hello. so,
Okay.
Duke Ellington was fascinating character. I mean, he I think he's more of a household name than see again
Sorry, I'm just messing around.
yeah, peekaboo. But he Duke was fascinating character. Really, he had a band for over 50 years, and it was a long time because it spanned the whole way from
50 years.
yeah.
Good
So it
lord.
ran the whole time from the very early jazz, the start of the jazz age, through all the phases of, through the big band era, through the bebop era, through the free jazz era, the post, the hard bop, so his band was there right up till he died in 1974. So 50
Hmm.
years and 3 months, which was, a serious achievement considering most of the big bands died off, had to be disbanded in the mid to late 40s, 1946 to 48, 49.
Hmm.
Most of them went out of business that time, and he managed to hold it together for that length of time. And even there was they did the Newport Jazz Festival, 1956, and things were looking really grim. He was throwing his savings into it and everything. It was looking like he was going to have to wind up the band, and in the end, they did this performance of Diminuendo in Blue and Crescendo in Blue. Um, and the tenor sax player Paul Gonsalves did a big long solo in the middle of it, and it ended up the crowd had been leaving. They went on late. They were all despondent. The crowd had been leaving, and in the end, the crowd all came back in and ended up in a massive almost into a riot, like with and put Ellington back
Z.
on the map again, and he salvaged things again and kept going till the end. But
Yeah.
he he always kind of he reckoned his main instrument was the band, and in fact he was a very good piano player, and people forget that. They tend to kind of
Yeah.
say rate him as a
Yeah. Yeah.
composer arranger, but he was a stunning piano player as
Yeah.
well. And really, I mean, some of the stuff kind of stride piano, the early stuff in the 20s, and he was very good at it. Like, and people tend to dismiss that and forget about that. But
Yeah.
his band, like I said, was regarded as instrument, and he had some great musicians over the years. There was a guy called Bubber Miley, who was a photo there. There's one titled, um, if you could get it up there, please, Bianca. There's
Yeah.
a
I
photo
don't
with
think I have another photo here.
this.
Um. Yeah, I didn't
I,
upload the other
I
one.
don't worry
Sorry.
about it. So, but he was a trumpet player who did a lot of the kind of growl sounds with the with the rubber plunger, and
Yeah.
he was only with Ellington for 5 years. Sadly, he died very young. He was a big drinker and he died from TB at 29. But he kind of
Oh.
that sound stayed in the Ellington band for
Yeah.
over 40 years after he died. And
Yeah.
some of those records in the 20s were brilliant by Ellington. Things like Black and Tan Fantasy, East St. Louis Total Law, Jubilee Stomp.
Yeah.
There were amazing records. And the guy who came after him, Cootie Williams, another guy, played the trumpet, the growl trumpet, and the guy who used to do the same on the trombone was a fellow called Tricky Sam Nanton, another great player. And he guys like Johnny Hodges, the alto sax player, um, Barney Bigard, clarinet player, a guy called
Yeah.
Harry Carney stayed with him from 1927 to 1974, a very long tenure. And the
Yeah.
band, like I said, he kept a great band going. It changed obviously over the years, and
Yeah. I
throughout
was
each of the decades, there was good stuff coming out from him. Go on.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt now. I was thinking like there is a pattern like between all these musicians we are talking about, and
Yeah.
the pattern is they all lived in different in very fragile conditions, like
Mm,
about taking care of themselves and
yeah.
surviving in all the those difficult times
Yeah.
that they
Mm,
had to travel in severe in winters,
mm,
and they had to maintain a band that
yeah.
had problems with alcohol and
Yeah.
other
It's tough
stuff,
going. Like.
and a
Mm,
lot of stuff going on, and very the environment wasn't was awesome for music, but like
yeah.
in terms of health, they weren't living
Yeah.
that
Terrible. Yeah.
healthy,
Yeah. Sure.
and I believe like a lot of them passed away very young as
Yeah.
well,
Did
and
you?
it's just a shame that you know the environment wasn't a bit more
Yeah.
healthy for them, and they you know then they will not suffer as they
Yeah.
did. But their legacy, it's amazing,
Yeah.
despite the fact that they were living like that.
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no. It was
So
tough going, and especially for I mean, all the black guys as well. Like, I mean, touring the
the
South
segregation,
oh yeah,
yeah,
it was terrible. I mean, it
yeah,
was. I remember Fats Waller's song talking about like you could be in a concert hall and you've got on one side you've got all the black people, on the other side you've all the white people, and they're all listening to the same music. It's
yeah,
insanity. Like, and I mean, Duke Ellington, I think he had a good attitude in that he kind of rose above it, and a lot most of them did. They kept a dignified front to things. Guys like Duke
yes,
Ellington, Louis Armstrong, I think
yes,
Jelly Roll Morton. A lot of them like they kept a dignified front in the face of things, and they said, we're not going to fulfill any of the stereotypes that the white people have laid out for us. Like, we're going to, be dignified about it and keep our art going and so on. And
yes,
he
yes,
um he was he was fiercely loyal. I mean, he said like there was the like he always had these guys in the band who were troublemakers. He seemed to enjoy it, or he always had these guys who were always drinking all the time and causing havoc and all the rest of it. Like, and he just that was the way for the band the whole way through. And in later
yeah,
years, more drug, lot of drugs going on. But he was fiercely loyal to
yeah,
them. If anybody criticized him or anything, he'd back them up straight
yes,
away. But and the other
yeah.
thing was he famously never fired anybody. A few people early on, but he just made life so difficult for them that they
Yeah, I
had to
think
quit.
Charles Mingus was it? Charles Mingus was
Mingus,
one
yeah,
of the
yeah, that's
yeah,
it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Then afterwards he recorded, I think, a song for
Mm,
him
did
in
yeah, yeah,
tribute.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
did yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
but he was great. great stuff. And we're lucky there's plenty films of the Ellington band from the 20s up to the 70s. So there's
On
check
YouTube
them out as well.
or
Yeah,
yes,
they
on
should be on
YouTube
YouTube,
and
or they should be available. And going right back to the early days, right through. I think there's a film called Black and Tan Fantasy 1929, and then you've got Bundle of Blues 1933, and then there's a bunch of soundies in the 30s, 40s, and then you have the
yeah.
Snader films in the 50s, and then even some in color later on then as
Yes.
well. You know?
You know what would be nice? We did next time when we meet for another live video, we
Yeah,
could watch movies and talk about the
yeah,
movies and stuff. This would
yeah.
be a
That'd be
nice
cool. Yeah,
idea. Yeah,
that'd be cool. Yeah, a few
that would be
soundies.
cool. Yeah, yeah. I love watch those movies about the stories of
Yeah,
of the musicians. I just think it's amazing. It's
yeah.
brilliant.
No, they're
And
great to see. I just
yeah,
can I just call out there? Some
yeah,
of the
yeah.
tunes he was well known for was um, the ones I mentioned there already. But I think his biggest hit was "Take the A Train," and interestingly, it wasn't
Take
written by
the
him; it was written by a guy called Billy Strayhorn. And the story goes that there was there was a dispute with the musicians' union, or ASCAP, I think, yeah, ASCAP actually in the early 40s. So they had to
yeah.
rewrite the band book. So his son Mercer, who was a trumpet player, Ellington put him and Billy Strayhorn in a hotel room with a big supply of wine and fags, wine and cigarettes so they could work away on rewriting the band book because they weren't allowed to play the tunes registered in ASCAP. And Mercer Ellington found Take the A Train in the bin. And he confronted Billy
What?
Strayhorn. Yeah, he confronted Billy Strayhorn. He said, "What the hell is this? You know, what's this doing in the bin?" And Billy Strayhorn, "Oh, it sounded too much like Fletcher Henderson." So Mercer
He
Ellington,
didn't like it, and
no, I didn't like it, and Mercer Ellington, Duke's son, rescued that tune from the bin anyway,
oh
and
my
they
god.
recorded it, and it's a great tune, and
Yeah.
it turned out to be Ellington's biggest hit. And some of the other ones he wrote, like "Don't Get Around Much Anymore," and
Yeah.
was "I Got a Bad" and "That Ain't Good," and there was, a lot of them there. They were done in collaboration with some of the guys in the band, but I think Ellington was a bit controversial in that he did nick things, but he did kind
Mhm.
of bring them into being proper compositions as well. So if you if he didn't do that, they could have just ended up just ideas with musicians and bits and pieces rather than
Yeah, yeah.
being brought into proper compositions, which is what he did. So
Mhm.
there's two sides to the story. Like, he did nick things, but he pulled it together and he got the stuff published and performed and everything as well.
Yes, yes. And Lisa said here they were very determined, all for the love of
Yeah,
music.
definitely,
Yes,
definitely.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
music is always. I think music was the lead behind
yeah,
all all these things that they did and challenge that
yeah,
they confront at the time.
big
And
time.
this is amazing because Duke Orchestra was like they were recording and they were like doing arrangements and was very different than the other orchestras.
Mm,
Like they were
yeah.
composing together, even
Mm.
writing together a few stuff.
But
And
he pulled it together. I suppose he would have
yeah,
got
yeah,
ideas and that,
he
but
will be the one. Okay, let's do this and that. Let's
yeah,
put this
took it from the
together.
band. Yeah, took
Yeah, yeah,
inspiration from
yeah,
his band that
yeah,
fed
yeah.
into what he did as well. And that, yeah, you're right, Bianca. That was an important thing there. Like that, he pulled that stuff together. And
Yeah,
as he said
yeah,
himself, he considered the band his instrument then for performance and so on.
yeah. And it's amazing because at the time you need to be like a really good musician to record because
Yeah,
the recordings were made like one take because you
we start again then. If we go,
you
yeah,
know to press in the the
yeah,
gramophone or one take that's it and
yeah,
that's it and
mm,
so you needed to do in that
yeah,
time yeah, of course you need to repeat you need to record
yeah,
again another
yeah,
so it was expensive process as well so
yeah, yeah,
yeah so you needed to be like on the ball and just play it and that's it and to organize this as a band leader oh my god with all the context and all
yeah,
the people arriving late and
yeah.
oh yeah I
Chaos. Yeah,
got I just imagine I can't
yeah.
even
I know.
realize this in my mind.
I know it's amazing how he pulled it together, and because some of the other band leaders were tyrants, like they had to be. I think he kind of had to be in ways. I mean, Benny Goodman was vicious. Like, he
Yeah,
was. I mean, some of the stories you hear about Benny Goodman were just, he was hard work, but I mean,
yeah,
it paid off. But I, it was he was tough enough on the musicians. Ellington somehow pulled it together in spite of the chaos that was going on around him. I think he seemed to enjoy it. He found it entertaining. I think, you know. Yeah, great tune.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great tune, great tune. So
Mm.
we can talk about next
Yeah.
guest. Let's talk about um. Well, are we play now? What do you think?
Mm. Sure. Sure. I'll do a
Do you
tune.
want to
Sure.
play
Yeah.
a few
I do a
one
tune
tune
there.
for
Sure.
us, please?
Yeah, I'll do one tune. Well, since we're talking about ragtime, I'll do a rag
Cool.
tune there. This one is
Wow, awesome.
called right, and well, to lead into the connection will lead into the next one really, because we'll be talking about Fats Waller in a minute, and
Oh, cool.
this this
Brilliant.
tune it's not a jazz, it's played as a jazz standard, but I'm going to do it as a guitar solo. So I've got
Okay.
me Martin guitar here. So
Oh, cool.
um, Fats Waller and Cab Calloway and a bunch of the great black stars, Bill Robinson, Lena Horne, were all in the Nicholas Brothers, dancers,
Yeah.
and Dooley Wilson from Casablanca. They were all in a film called Stormy Weather. It was an all black cast.
Yeah, I heard about this movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And one of the theme tunes that runs through it is this one. It's called "At a Georgia Camp Meeting," and it's a cakewalk from the early part of the 1900s. So I'm just going to do a guitar arrangement. This is based on one by Stefan Grossman, which is based on one by Leo Wienkamp Jr. So
Okay.
I hope you like it. It's
Great.
going to really try and get the piano feel on the guitar. That
Okay.
it's like if you're a guitar player, you're like a piano player with three hands. You've got your guiding hand,
Yeah.
that's your left hand, and your fingers are your right hand. But
Yeah.
that's
But
it.
this is what is amazing about fingerstyle that
Mm.
you bring all these instruments in
Really. So I'll
the
try to. Is the guitar coming through okay there, Bianca?
just play a little bit. Yeah. I can hear you okay.
Okay, I'll give her a
Okay.
go there. So this is at a Georgia Camp meeting, and I hope you like it.
Okay. Brilliant. Well done.
Thanks,
Very
Bianca.
good.
Thanks.
Awesome. Now I'm gonna watch this movie now again now. I think we can find this movie now.
Yeah,
Um
check it out.
yeah, amazing. Well done, Jesus. Yeah, it's always
Thanks.
good to see you playing and listen to you. It's
No,
so
thanks likewise,
nice.
Bianca.
Like,
Likewise.
geez, it's amazing. And wow, so we keep now our conversation. Oh, look at that. We have some comments. Lisa said that was awesome.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you.
I knew well. Thanks, Lisa. Yes.
Mm.
Thank you for your comment there. And yeah, if you want to send questions to Brian or to myself, you can write in the comments as well. And we're going to our next musician of the night. Um, we're gonna talk about Fats Waller. Is
Yeah.
it? I think you sent
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
collage. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that now! Wow,
Yeah. So
amazing.
Fats Waller was, yeah, he's one of the great pianists, one of the greatest pianists of all time, really, and a very prolific composer as well. He wrote, he's credited with 450 compositions. His son said he wrote twice that, really. He was a
Yeah.
big radio star and personality in the 30s and on records, and was probably the one of the largest of the larger than life characters in the jazz and entertainment world. And he appeared in a few films as well. But he was a stunning virtuoso player, and probably stands alone really as the one of the probably the only guy of note to record jazz on the pipe organ as well. And
Oh,
he made a
jeez.
lot of records on that. He loved the organ, like, and the, his son Maurice said he wrote twice the number of compositions he was credited with, and swapped a lot of them for a few quick bucks. And the ones that he wrote, like he wrote "Ain't Misbehaving," "Honeysuckle Rose," "Blue Turning Grey Over You," and a bunch of others that did well. And
Yeah.
the hits that he made $5 or $6 million, which he didn't really see, and all that. And he was only 39 when he died. So he
Jeez.
died suddenly. I mean, he drank like a fish, drank very heavily. Didn't
Yeah.
generally affect his work, but it did. I caught up with him once,
Affected,
all right, in
of
a Carnegie
course.
Hall
Yeah.
concert, and he ended up
Mm-hmm.
the worse for wear at that, but kind of recovered it again. But yeah, it was sad. He was on his way home for Christmas, December '43, from the West Coast, from Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles, and he died as the train was pulling into Kansas City Station halfway across the country. So he never made it home for Christmas with his family, like, and he died at 39. So he was a
Jeez.
party animal, like, but it's,
Mm.
amazing piano player, amazing personality as well. Made a series of records with Fats Waller and his rhythm. And I think when you think about, just to give an example of how good he actually was, there was trumpeter Bill Coleman traveled with him to a record session once in Camden, New Jersey, which is on the border. It's a suburb of Philadelphia, really, but it's
Yeah.
across the Delaware River in New Jersey. It's Camden, New Jersey, and that's where the Victor headquarters was, and
Oh.
the Victor Recording Company. So they got the
Yes. Yes.
train down. Yes, so they got the train down from New York, and uh, drank a bottle of whiskey or two on the way.
Oh my God.
So this is before he even got to the studio. He was still
Jeez.
fine, and he got the music, and he'd never seen it before. And there's one of the tunes called Night Wind, if you check out the record. And when
Night
you
wind.
so he
Yeah.
plays the organ, the pipe organ on that, but you had to time the organ slightly ahead of the rest of the band because the noise came through a split second after you pressed the key down. So
Oh my
in the end,
God.
anyway, he was doing this anyway. He worked out the arrangement for the band, music he'd never seen before. He's playing the organ on the tune. He has to time it a bit ahead, and he's singing at the same time, and he's had a bottle or two of whiskey under his belt at the same time, and it all sounds like he's been doing it for playing that tune for
Jeez.
years. So
Oh
he
my
was
God.
amazing player and a great personality. As you can see from the photos there, he was a real larger than life personality. And if you check out, there's some of the films on YouTube, there's some soundies on YouTube, and you get the full effect there. That's still on the right there with that the lady's Lena Horne. She was a very talented singer. That's from the film Stormy Weather, actually, that picture.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah. Jesus,
yeah,
and I think he lived the fullest, and
yeah,
you know,
did,
and
yeah,
and it's amazing. Like the legacy, like
yeah,
is just forever. Like
yeah,
you would
yeah,
imagine, like how how people at that time, musicians like
yeah,
himself and Duke and all of them, like eh, as I said, there is a pattern, that it was a big success, and then at the end, um, something happened, or they were forgotten, or they
Yeah.
didn't, you know and it's a lot. This happened with a lot of musicians afterwards as
Yeah.
well, like,
Did you? But,
even like with Jaco Pastorius, of
yeah,
course.
that was very sad. Very sad. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's just, I think there's, I don't I can't, I struggle to find an explanation, because they are so genius, and
Yeah.
maybe they get abused for of people that,
Yeah.
like producers at the time, or
Oh yeah.
this
Yeah.
stuff. And
Did you?
this play a big role as well, because they were the ones as well earning the money, on
Yeah.
top of the artists, exploring the
Oh
artists,
yeah.
and
Big
the,
time.
the artists didn't know anything. They thought,
Yeah.
they trust actually these people, and they just didn't care. They just
You
want the
know,
money,
a lot
and
more exploited. They were. Sure, I mean, like Ellington, Irving Mills was Ellington's manager for years. He took huge amounts of money. There was a guy called with Louis Armstrong, Joe Glazer. He got half of Louis Armstrong's money. That was the deal, you know. And Armstrong was happy enough that somebody took care of all the business
yeah,
nonsense. Like, and it's not nonsense, but he saw it as I just
yeah,
want to play music, and
yeah,
because it was such a treacherous
yeah,
industry
yeah,
there as well. Like, I mean,
yes,
wherever you have talent, you're surrounded by parasites. Like, and that was those guys were no exception. They always had a lot of hangers on, Um,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Fatswaller was one of the luckier ones. He actually did make a success of it, even though he was very careless with money, very careless with his health.
Mm-hmm.
He died very young.
Yeah,
He was only 39 when he died, and
yeah.
but I forgot to say his full name was Thomas Wright Waller. It's Tom. So I named my own son
Tom, yeah.
after him. My
Oh,
wife,
that's
like my
so
wife agreed
sweet.
to name
When you
Thomas
agreed,
named
yeah.
after him. Yeah,
Oh, that's so sweet. Yes.
yeah,
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and this is the impact they have in our lives.
yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
we kind of identify ourselves as well as a musicians, struggling day by day in our daily lives as well to make a living from music, or but the times are changing as well.
mm,
So I think we are more like aware, let's say,
mm,
about all this in music industry, all this
yeah,
business, and trying to be more sustainable, I
yeah,
suppose, nowadays. And you don't need a lot of, you don't need to be a celebrity, or you don't need,
mm,
you just need a fan base that will support your work,
yeah, yeah,
and that's it. And people will like you, and you will give your best to the people, to the audience. And
yeah,
it's a relationship. It's like,
yeah,
they become part of your life, they become part of your family. And this is how I see nowadays, um, trying to, as a professional musician, let's say, to try to make a living from music. And times had changed a lot since the times where Fats and
yeah,
Jelly and Bessie and Duke.
yeah,
So I think it's important we look back to those musicians, these artists, because they have a story to tell, and they have an attitude
yeah,
towards
yeah.
what they
The
were
tenacity,
living. Yeah,
the
yeah.
tenacity. I mean, you look at like the case with Jelly Roll Morton there, like where the last ditch attempt, like changes two cars together, takes off in the snow for across 3,000 miles, and with asthma and a heart condition. I mean, and didn't die along the way, like, and but it still was you could say it was futile, but in the end he died broken, forgotten. But his stuff is still there, it still lives on, and there was a bit of hope in that the new stuff he wrote was performed. It was no good to him, but it was performed in the end anyway, and he's held in high
Yeah,
regard still, but there's a pity
yeah.
it couldn't have happened while he was still alive, I think
Yes.
Duke and Fats were lucky they got. No, it wasn't plain sailing. It was hard
Yeah.
going. I mean, and you look as well from the race aspect, like Fatswaller, he stood up to some of the movies he was in. They wanted him to play a shoeshine boy and won, and he refused. He said, "I won't play a shoeshine boy." And they said, "Will you play an elevator boy?" And he says, "Okay, I'll play an elevator boy." No, it wasn't that much of a step up, but he just wanted to show I'm not going to give in all the way, like and
Yeah. Oh my God.
yeah.
That's
So
that's um,
wouldn't happen today but
yeah,
they were
yeah.
the times, like, and those guys, it's unfair when people start accusing guys like Louis Armstrong and Fats Waller and so on, and being Uncle Toms. They weren't Uncle Toms. They paved the way for the other black people to get into films and things as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Yeah.
start somewhere. If they disengage from it, then
Yeah.
that wouldn't have worked either. And
Yeah. It
the
was very difficult to be in
yeah, it was,
these
yeah,
places.
it
Like
was, yeah, yeah,
was almost impossible.
yeah.
Like
And a lot of it
yeah.
was run by gangsters as well. So you're,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, during Prohibition and everything, I mean, Louis Armstrong had to
Yeah.
flee to England because there was gangsters after him. They'd have smashed up his face and he couldn't play the trumpet. So, you know, they, it was tough going. Like, if you got in,
Yeah.
there was no protection there. Like, they didn't hire a bunch of armed bodyguards like they have these days. Like, you,
Yeah.
you had to just do the best you could with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So it's amazing to think that nowadays um, we can talk about them and research about them because back then when I was living in Brazil, I I couldn't know about any of
Mm.
them. Like even
Yeah,
if I listened to old records like vinyl, I
yeah,
wouldn't know about their stories. I
yeah,
would be something like, okay, this is awesome, but it's artists that I don't know. And now here, 10 years now from
yeah,
that I live in Ireland and I have English, I can research in English. So there is a lot of material that is not translated to
yeah.
Portuguese.
But it
And
works the other way as well, Bianca, in
yeah,
that, like, there's a lot of Brazilian art. I mean, from looking at your posts that you make on Facebook and the music I've heard you playing there,
mm-hmm,
I've heard of
mm-hmm.
some of the names like um,
Like
Hoban and
Tom
some of
Jobim.
them
Yeah,
Chobin, yeah, and
yeah.
some of them, pardon the mispronunciation, but there's a whole world of stuff there, and a couple of the other things you've
Mm-hmm.
shared out there, I thought was fascinating that isn't generally known in the
Yes.
English speaking world, and there's a whole world of stuff to explore there. And it's beautiful music as well.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and this is I think is our role is to bring all these artists that we like and we research about it
Yeah,
in our own country or even out of our country,
yeah,
and especially of course now you said the Brazilian, it's true, it's the same, is happen on both sides, and I think it's important to bring all these compositions to
mm,
the open mic and to
yeah, yeah,
tell about their
definitely, yeah,
stories and and the context they were made as well in Brazil
yeah,
in the
yeah.
60s and the 40s 30s, and they had big influence from jazz, all of
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
songs of
yeah,
Jobim, and
yeah,
he was the one that had more access actually
yeah,
and had more education to actually research and got influences and and
yeah,
had a condition to have a piano as well, a financial
yeah,
ways to have a piano, because in Brazil piano was very expensive at the
yeah,
time and only rich families had it.
yeah,
And yeah, so this how things happened and gave him as well the chance to mix jazz with samba, and then
yeah,
bossa nova
yeah,
was born.
yeah,
Of
amazing.
course, together with all other artists like João Gilberto as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so I think before we talk about Bessie, we could you could play another song,
Right,
maybe.
we'll do, we'll do. I'll do one more there. Sure, this
I
is
think there's the people want to listen one more.
one
I
more. Sure, yeah.
think one
It's
more
it's kind of
to close a.
I'll do this one is again it's a mixture of stuff just to show as well that you know all this music is related as well. It's not some people get into pigeonholing, and there is pigeonholes there definitely, but
Mm-hmm,
at times people can get a bit hung up on differences there, like and close their minds off some people. But I think there are definitely a lot of relationships between these musics, and there's a big overlap. This this is a tune called "I'll See You in My Dreams," and it's actually based on more of a country artist's, well, if you call him that, Merle Travis's version. But I've
mm-hmm.
thrown in a
Travis,
couple
yeah.
of other bits. Yeah, Travis, he was
Mm-hmm.
an amazing guitar
Oh.
player and the great finger picking guitar player, but took a lot of influence from blues, jazz,
Mm-hmm.
and elsewhere. He was a folk singer as well, and he wrote a lot of songs like 16 Tons, Smoke, Smoke, Smoke That Cigarette, etc. And in technical design as well on guitars. So your electric guitar with the tuning pegs all on the same side. That was his design
Yeah.
originally, and the Bigsby tailpiece that you see on some electric guitars, which is still pretty much the same as design since the 40s. He was involved in designing that as well. But this piece, anyhow, just kind of a load of people recorded it, written by Isham Jones, same guy who wrote it, had to be you, and
Yeah.
he he recorded himself in 1924. That's more of a dance band version with a warbly vocal.
Yes.
Don't want to be musical snob or anything, but just fairly sounds very dated.
Yeah.
Fletcher Henderson's
Now
band
you.
recorded it. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, sorry. Now that you talk about Travis, there was another guitar player that made that song, the Guitar Man.
That was
Jerry
Jerry Reed,
Reed.
yeah.
Yeah,
Jerry Reed,
Reed.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Elvis
yeah.
recorded it, yeah. Jerry
Elvis.
Reed was
Yeah.
amazing, yeah. Jerry Reed was an amazing player, just all over the place. I mean, you know, I suppose the big three there would have been Merle Travis, Chet Atkins, and Jerry Reed
Chad
would have been
Atkins. Yeah.
the big three of country guitar, that style. But they all came from, I think Chet was came from Merle Travis. I think he said if
Yeah.
he hadn't heard Merle Travis, he'd still be down south looking at the back of a mule going around the field. He said, you know.
Oh my
So
gosh!
that
Imagine
that's
that
how much you rated
impact. The
Merle
impact
Travis.
in,
Yeah, impact. Yeah, like you say.
yeah.
But so I added the verse in which Merle didn't play, and I kind of nicked that from Louis Armstrong, the solo he played with Fletcher Henderson, and the intro is it's not the same. Django Reinhardt recorded it as well, one of
Yeah.
the great
Django.
jazz guitar players,
Oh.
and the intro is kind of similar rhythm to what Django played. Obviously, it's a different key, different chords, but there's I kind of based the feel of that hopefully on
Yeah.
Django's intro. So,
Cool. So
oh,
this is one of my favorite songs actually. And
mm,
the first time I heard was a medley between Chet Atkins and Mark Knopfler.
Mark Knopfler, yeah,
They did a medley. It was amazing. I was
yeah,
oh my god, I love this song and
yeah. Knopfler loved
start
Atkins,
researching
yeah,
about
yeah.
Cool.
So there's,
Okay, so I let you with see you in
right,
my
I'll give this one a
I will
go.
see you in my dreams.
Yeah, I hope you like it. Thanks, Bianca.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well
Thanks,
done.
Bianca.
Bravo.
Thanks,
Bravo.
Bianca.
Awesome.
Mm,
Thanks so much, Brian, for playing for us. It's always awesome to hear you playing.
mm.
It's so
Thanks, likewise.
relaxing, calming.
Mm,
So Lisa put a comment here. Be joy, but family will be here. Sorry to leave you both. I will come back and listen to the broadcast.
right,
Have the most blessed day.
right.
Thank you, Lisa, for being here with
Thanks,
us.
Lisa. Thanks for
Thank you so
tuning in and your
much.
kind words. All the best.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think we are finishing now soon with just talking a bit about Bessie
Mm,
Smith, our
yeah,
last
yeah,
musician of the night. And I'm going to put some pictures of
yeah,
her here. And we can try to see what can we explore about Bessie. Here we go.
yeah,
Here it is. Ah, so gorgeous with
yeah,
the feathers.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was taken by a guy called Carl Van Victen. He did portraits of a lot of singers and artists back in the 30s, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the Carl
Mm-hmm.
Van Victen print there. And yeah, she was a great singer, a great personality. Sadly, died very young. She was only 43, and it was
Yes.
very tragic how she died because she'd been in a car crash. And they managed to get her out of the car and put her into the station wagon of a passerby, and then another car smashed into that. So she was in two car crashes, and they took her to
Jeez.
hospital, and I think they amputated one of her arms, and in the end she died anyway shortly after. She
Yeah.
didn't recover, so it was very sad. I mean, she was one of the most talented singers of the 20s, 30s. Her, there's an interesting film of her, actually, St. Louis Blues from 1929, and a few of the guys from the Fletcher Henderson band are in there. Joe Smith, who was her favorite
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
accompanist, and he died very young as well. Shortly after she did, he was only 35 when he died, and he was a great trumpeter. He was her favorite trumpeter, as well. And she I think, yeah, she'd been in shows and that when she was younger. Like we were talking about earlier, Bianca. She was from Chattanooga, Tennessee,
Yes, yes,
and she'd
yes.
been
We
in
were
a
talking.
circus and that, and
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she
gone.
was in a circus, and she saw that there was very hard work in the circus, and didn't really return a lot of. She couldn't leave from the circus actually. Like she was struggling, and
Yeah,
one night she just left, and she got a train, and without destiny, like. And yeah, she met. I think in the train she met a big producer. Kind of was another woman.
right.
I don't remember the name now, but there is a film, a documentary about her life,
Yeah,
Bessie. And if you want to watch, it's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
She did well. She recorded with a lot of greats then as well. And there's a nice Columbia box set with two CDs, and I actually had it on the other day before we ever got chatting
Oh
about
yeah,
her
yeah.
there.
You were saying
And
that you're playing her
yeah,
records.
they're doing version of Hot Town and Old Town Tonight and Alexander's Ragtime Band. So she did she was known as the Empress of the Blues, but she did a lot of the kind
Yeah,
of pop songs as well. And she did blues
yeah,
songs and she did jazz songs. And she was, recorded with a good bit with some of the Fletcher Henderson guys from the Fletcher Henderson Band. She recorded
yeah,
with Louis Armstrong as well. And, or it was just they recorded with her. She was probably better known than than them at the time. And she did good work, and she was a tough old cookie as well. I mean, she was a big woman,
mm-hmm.
6 foot. Uh,
Yes,
there was one story about how they were doing something somewhere down south, and a couple of clan guys came after them, and she saw them off herself, and so she was fearless,
yes.
and tough as well,
Jeez, very courage about against the Ku Klux
yeah.
Klan.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god.
So she was, and her career kind of dried up a bit. Then she recorded with Benny Goodman in 1933, and her
Mm-hmm.
last 4 years, that was the last time she recorded. Her last 4 years were kind of in obscurity. And it was the guy she was going out with at the time was actually Lionel Hampton's uncle, Richard Morgan was his name.
Yeah,
When she had that tragic accident, so yeah, it was
yeah,
a sad early end for such a talented person. Like, there's another couple of photos. I don't know if you don't know them or not, there, Bianca. But
yeah. I have a thing. I have another one here. This
yeah,
one.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that's another one by the same guy, Carvin Victon. But
yeah.
that's it, the Empress of the Blues. So check out her music, folks. She
Yes.
was a great singer and had a few cheeky songs as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was. I would like to have a time machine and just go there
Mm,
that time
yeah,
and meet them and just
yeah,
say, you're amazing,
I know,
and
I
your
know.
your music will stay
Still
for
there.
more
Yeah,
than
yeah, I know.
than 50 years, like
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh well,
That's
so
it.
I think we are finishing our conversation. We have now
Cool.
1 hour on the clock.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian, for being here. It was amazing.
Right.
And
Likewise,
thank you for
Bianca. Really
all.
enjoyed that. No, thanks very much for inviting me and
Thank
enjoy
you.
that.
Yeah, we need to do another again and then
Yeah,
watch some movies and stuff.
yeah,
Prepare the popcorn.
yeah. We do a
And
Soundies night or something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cool.
cinema night. And yeah, so thank you very much. Have a good night there in London. And yeah, and I will see you in the music. And
Yeah.
thanks for your contribution tonight, okay?
Right. Thanks, Bianca, and
Thanks.
thanks for everybody else for tuning in. All the best.
Thank you. Bye, Brian.
We know.
Bye. So that was Brian Goggin. Oh my God, 1 hour now. I would like to say thank you to all of you that stay to the end. And I would like to invite you to my online show, Timeless River, A Wrinkle in Time. That will happen on the 22nd of April, 9 p.m., from 9 to 10 o'clock. I'm so excited about this online show. And yeah, so all the friends are supporting, and I hope to see you there. And I see you in the music. Thank you. Bye now. Bye bye. Yay.